Hi, everyone. Welcome to our, I believe it's our 10th edition of this professional tribes fireside chat, and we're happy to have you here. We have representing us all Mucha, who's in Dubai. We have New York, Dr. Mona is in New York. We have Chinasai, who's in Harare. And our guests are also both in Harare. These women have held the highest posts in their respective careers. Dr. Grace Muradikwa, who is an insurance regulator in Harare, was crowned the first Black woman to list and head a publicly traded company in Harare. And with us as well is Nancy Guza, who is the CEO of FMCG, who's also in Harare, who was crowned the first female managing director of Unilever, among so many other accolades that I could barely list. I mean, it would take us maybe a couple of days to list their levels of education and the roles that they've held in their careers. Welcome, ladies, and thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Lovely to be here.
So I'd like to start off this chat by asking a really interesting question, which is if we can just go around the fireside and just discuss, what has been the biggest challenge that you've had to overcome as a woman in, leading an organization, having a family, trying to balance both. What's the biggest challenge that you've had to overcome? And what would you say you learned from that? And we'll start with you, please, Miss Grace.
Okay, thank you. I would actually say that the biggest challenge is fear, because I think just fear of the unknown, fear of failure. And I think once you overcome that fear, you actually find that it gets much easier, as you navigate. But I think for me, it was maybe just getting opportunities and also getting other cheerleaders, sisters like Nancy here, so I'm really delighted that we're sharing this platform together, because you do need each other, to lift each other, encourage each other as you journey.
Miss Grace and Nancy, sorry, could I just make an admin request that you turn your cameras on? Would love to see your faces, and I'm sure the audience would too.
All right, okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Grace. And, when I look at your profile, I don't see fear at all anywhere on that profile. So I appreciate that. Nancy?
So, look, to talk a little bit about myself, I think the biggest challenge that I faced is actually coming from other women. So that's where you have women who may be not such high performers, but who've got an expectation that you should support them for whatever reason, which I think really just pulls women back in the corporate space, because you've got people that come and they sometimes feel entitled, sometimes they feel that they're joining a club. And the reality is that when you're in the corporate space, you need to be in the corporate space and you need to perform.
Wow, I think it resonates with a lot of us here. We've discussed it before in one of our chats, right, girls? That women, whether we support each other or diminish each other, can have such a huge impact on our careers. Mucha, what's your experience been?
I'm going to go with women supporting women. That's my big ticket one, because, I think women being good bosses and bosses that take people along with them. Experience being that, I work in male-dominated environments, so typically I'm the only girl at the table. And when you start to kind of navigate that boys' club, you require a lot of steel and a lot of support. So I'd say women supporting each other and women mentoring women coming up the ladder as well.
I'm not in the corporate world. I'm in medicine, actually. And as you all know, that's probably a male-dominated career sort of industry. However, I do believe that, I have always been told that, when you step into a room, like, my biggest challenge is I've always had to sort of assert myself more than most males did. And I think we're going to come up to this where it ends up presenting me in such a way that I'm found to be aggressive or intimidating and things like that. And those are things that I've had to sort of battle for myself, because it also sort of ends up being part of your nature. So I'm curious to hear a little bit more about that from our speakers. I think what Nancy touched on was really true, because like you said, if you're an underperformer, should you really be supported? But I think that's where all the mentorship and allyship comes up. And I'm pretty sure we're going to talk about that a little bit more.
I think everything that's been said is really, really important. For me, it has always been courage. Choosing an entrepreneurship journey, in my sense, for different reasons, has presented an opportunity for me to think about how I show up in spaces, the who knew heart, as my mentor says over and over again, the idea of how do I become courageous for others, speak for others, and how do I, whether I'm the only one on that table, how do I present myself in a way that it represents all the other women that are behind me? So it's really to Dr. Grace's thing is about overcoming fear and being able to be courageous, to be so much more, to be that woman that we are, and not really try to be. It's difficult. So for me, it's how do you become more courageous, and how do you show up the way you're meant to show up and be the best that you can be.
Thank you. To our audience, thank you for joining us on the fireside. Our topic today is working women versus family women. And with us, we have, if you have just joined us, we have Dr. Grace Muradikwa and Nancy Guza. Ladies, let's take this off. Please just feel free to dump on us. We want to learn from you. We want to hear, how you got where you are in your careers and still were mothers, wives, sisters, aunts, all the roles that you still had to play in, outside of the workplace. So please, can you just give us a little bit of that tidbit, and how did that work out from the beginning of your career up until now? Nancy, if you can take us off.
I've always said that I had no business whatsoever being a failure. I was set up for success. And I know a lot of women have got stories to tell of, I lived a life where I started, from a very basic background, and, I walked 20 miles to school and so on, like a lot of inspirational and really challenging stories. I don't have that story. My parents gave me a very good education. They supported me through primary, through secondary, through university. And so I always knew that the bar was set high for me and the expectation was high. And in any case, I was one of those privileged people who was good academically. I didn't struggle, to study and to get good grades. So I've always felt that I had no business whatsoever being a failure. And then come to getting into the work world. I went into the work world, and I went into a company. Look, my first employer was Unilever, which I still believe is one of the best companies in the world ever. I went in as a management trainee, brilliant program. And I found that I did well. And the challenge for me wasn't so much about, being a woman and thinking that people weren't going to take me seriously as a woman. I think the challenge for me really was me trying to want to achieve, like, early on, and ensure that I did whatever it was that was in my head as quickly as possible, because I've always been very ambitious. It worked well for me. Come to marriage, I think that's where I, for the first time, had to sort of slow down, because I married not into a family where I would say there was a lot of expectations put on me, but I think there was a narrative that as a Murora, you are supposed to do certain things. You should dress a certain way, look a certain way. There were certain things you were supposed to do, which, to be very honest, I'd never been expected, to do it in the home that I came from. And I can't say that it was my in-laws that put it on me, but there was a narrative going on. And I think a lot of times the narratives of other people are what can affect us, because you can find that you're starting to fight a fight that you've got no business, fighting. And then, of course, getting married, and I took time, deciding to be a mom, because I was married for like 3-4 years before I decided, it was my decision, that I now want to have a child. Again, there was like a whole conversation going around. So I would say, in terms of career, I never really had a real issue in the workplace, because I found that I always got into organizations where I could work, I was supported, but also I can't remember who else mentioned it. I'm not afraid of asserting myself. I'm one of these women that I can put up my hand. If you don't listen to me when I want to speak, I can say, hey, I want to speak. And yeah, there's a lot of what people maybe might call aggression or whatever, but as far as I'm concerned, it's assertiveness. And I don't know if you know who's read the book that says, you know, nice girls don't get the corner office. So if you want to be nice, you've got no place being in the corporate world, because the reality is that there's a time to take your gloves off and say, I'm going in hard, I'm going in fighting. So I'd say that the real challenge was the narrative that other people were trying to put, to say, you know, you'd have people, for example, asking you, if you are working late, who is cooking for your husband? When people talk about Nancy Guja, what does the man behind Nancy Guja look like? Or, you know, you'd have people say, oh, I met your husband and I was expecting to meet like someone who was completely different. And then the big conversation becomes, what is the conversation in the home between the two of you? Because if the conversation between the two of you is not working well, then the reality is that that's where there's a problem. But while it's someone else's narrative, I think you can handle that and you can manage. My story is not typical in that a lot of the challenges that people speak about, I didn't have to go through them. The challenges that go with being a recognized woman, an accomplished woman, a successful woman, both in terms of career and finances and so forth, the reality is, yes, they will pose a challenge with any man. And I think we lie to each other if we say that they will not pose a challenge. But the conversation then becomes the conversation between the two of you. And I think that I've always said that I will always share truthfully, because I don't really have time to go and sit and listen to people lying to me. And I find that as women, we pressure each other, because women will tell each other that
we're gonna have to go deeper into that one.
I can work, you know, a 12-hour day. I can come home. I can cook a 5-course meal. I will then do whatever my husband wants to do thereafter, you know, and then my kids, you know, also do everything for them. In reality, it doesn't work. And for me, it came to a position where within my personal life, I always say that I always share that I did go through a divorce, but it wasn't something.
Before you touch up on that one, Nancy, before you touch up on that one, there's a tweet that you put on here that I really loved. It said, not everything that's doable is worth doing, but whatever is done must be done well. And it's reflective of everything that you're saying. So before you touch up on the divorce, because I definitely want to hear that, and I appreciate you, you know, being so open and frank, I'm going to turn over to Dr. Grace so she can just have us drink off her experience, and then we're definitely gonna. I want to hear that. We want to hear that story about your divorce. So, Dr. Grace, if you can just, you know, give us just you know, an idea of what your experience have been, you know, coming up through the ranks, a woman in the workplace, but also a family woman, and how that has played out.
Okay, so thank you, Mildred. Well, I think for me, the message that I would like to give to you ladies is whatever you're doing, I think you need to become an expert. You know, be so good at it that it's very difficult for people not to notice you. You know, make it difficult for people to ignore you. So, you know, my background is that I actually studied administration. I went into HR. And then that wasn't good enough for me. Then I started studying for insurance exams. I became more qualified than my bosses. And that's why I said, you know, you have to make it difficult for them not to notice you. It's true, I think what Mona Lisa said, that as women, we have to work doubly harder. I think you all know that, you know, for you to be noticed. So, you know, become an expert at whatever you are doing, such that, you know, when you are being promoted, when you're moving up the ladder, let people not ask why is she where she is. It should be obvious why you are where you are, because you are good at it, you're an expert. And so I took it upon myself to become an expert in insurance, you know, such that, you know, when we are talking insurance, I'll challenge anyone to come on the table, and I'll challenge you because I'm good at my work. I know what I'm doing. I know the subject. And, you know, when you stand amongst others, you know, people will point me out as an expert in insurance. So I think my message to you is, you know, make it difficult for people to ignore you. become an expert, be so good at whatever you are doing that they will risk, in fact, they will ignore you at their own peril.
Sorry, just got to jump in. I want to dance listening to you two women speak because
Yes,
you're
me
speaking
too.
a
I
language
feel like,
that resonates so beautifully.
Yes.
So beautifully.
And so, coming to marriage, I actually married very early, came out straight from college, married. I've been married, yes, to the same man for 35 years. And we have 6 children. We have 7 grandchildren. I'm enjoying my grandchildren. And it's not been easy. So I don't want to lie and say it's not been easy. A lot of my friends, they've come out of marriage. They are divorced. They're enjoying, being single. Um, but for me, I consider myself as one of the lucky ones because I think I had a partner who was also willing to give me space and to allow me to grow, allow me to move with my career. He was very, very supportive. And I know a lot of men and they struggle actually with a woman who is successful. It takes a very confident man to allow you space for you to self-actualize. The majority of men cannot, because what then happens is that, you become successful, first of all, when you are studying. They are not studying. And then very often you find that the woman starts doing better, getting a better job than they are, and they just cannot stand it, And so they start pulling you down. It happens all the time. But, you are lucky when you get a partner who allows you to self-actualize. And I think I was probably, I was lucky to get someone like that. Maybe because he was a little older than me. I also find that the ladies, when you are the same age and so on, you have got personal struggles, who is doing what, and so on, and you are not quite supportive of each other. But it's also important to get into a marriage when you both, are willing to sacrifice and make it work and support each other. Because it's a difficult institution. Marriage is such a difficult institution. But you must commit to it, because if you're the only one who is working at the marriage and he is not working at it, or you go into it like a social contract where you have really cut out your exit clauses, the smallest problem, you are out. It doesn't work like that. You really have to work at it, and like I said, it's not easy. And maybe lastly, because I know we've got limited time, talking about all this balance issue, I always say to girls, for me, there's nothing called balance. I struggled, and I'm not going to lie and tell you that, I managed to balance between my career. There's absolutely no way that I would have managed to get to where I am. You're a leader in society. You've got so many different roles that you need to balance. You have to be a superwoman for you to do that, and it's impossible. Why are you wanting to make yourself a superwoman? You get stressed, you get hypertensive. I have no high blood pressure, thank God. It is because I stopped trying to balance. I firmly believe that at any point in your life, you need to decide on your priorities. Decide on your priorities. If you are chasing your career, you are chasing it, that's your priority. And there comes a time in your life when you know that, look, I need to settle down. I need to prioritize my marriage. I need to prioritize my children, and so at any one time, but this work-life balance, marriage, and so on, I think it's crazy. I stopped, and I'm not going to try and ask somebody to try and balance, because I don't believe that balance exists.
What's really exciting, in fact, I'm thrilled to hear both of you speak, because the one thing that stands out is, we hear people talking about suffering from imposter syndrome. As you get through the corporate ladder, I don't really feel I belong, whereas you guys just exude this confidence and this undefiable, if you like, attitude towards you belonging in the spaces that you've occupied, and it's beautiful to hear you speak. So I must reiterate, I'm really excited to have you on the show tonight.
So I wanted to comment, so for both of you guys, one question is going to be like yes or no. The attitude that you both have, is that a learned attitude? Is that a learned behavior? Or is that something that you just always had? Because just from reading some of our self-help books, and I realized there's a lot of women that probably didn't have like the privilege of like just really being good at what you're good at, and had to work really hard at it. And I feel like that's where a lot of the imposter syndrome comes from, where perhaps you eventually succeed or you do well. And then I had another comment too. I had a private conversation with Dr. Grace recently this week, and just sort of leading up to the statement she just made, which I thought was really profound for me when I spoke with her. you know, she did mention something about there not being balanced, but you said something about balls, Dr. Grace, that, you know, there's always a certain number of balls and you name your balls and you're constantly juggling them. So when I got that visual, it made sense, you know, 15 balls, whatever, however many you have. And sometimes some of them just need to drop, you know, and then you can pick them up later. And I really, really love that analogy, because sometimes we feel the pressure to just kind of keep everything up in the air. But yeah, the question, sorry.
Yeah, and I know I was saying, Mona, and we're talking about marriage and all that, and I said, you know, unfortunately, unlike men, women, yes, we have the biological clock. So at some stage, if you want to have children, you need to decide, okay, this is the time for me to do that. Let me have children and so on. So, you know, recently I was talking to one of my friends and said, you know what, you know, this problem, we talk about biological clock, but even the men, you know, they also have erectile dysfunctions and so on. As they grow older, they don't talk about it. But they also have biological clocks, so they must have children. So these decisions are not just you know, peculiar to women. You know, the men have, and they do have their own biological issues, you know, the older they get. So don't be fooled, you know, don't be fooled, but you need to decide. If you want to have children, you can't also postpone it, you know, until you are 40 and still hope to have children, you know. So decide, maybe this is the time for me to have children. I need to focus on marriage. Yes, I'm going to get the right man and I'm going to have children. This is the time. I didn't have to do that because, you know, I started very, very early. You know, I had my first child when I was 21, and now my kids are like my sisters, you know, and I enjoy that very much. But I do appreciate that. I think the average age now, you know, for girls to get married, I believe it's about 29. You know, when we got married, it wasn't like that. So no pressure. You know, I think take it easy. Just make sure that you get the right men for yourself.
Oh, thank you so much. And Nancy, I do want to hear about, you know, you touched on the divorce. Now, what happens? You're a powerful woman and the relationship just doesn't work. Can you take us through that journey?
I made a decision. That's what happened. And, you know, I don't want to kind of talk about, you know, the sort of intricate and intimate details of my life. But I made a decision. And what I want, why I always touch on that when I speak to women who ask me to come and speak, is that I found that it resonates so much. There are so many women who are in unhappy relationships. There are so many women who are doing like 1960s nonsense. And they are the breadwinner, and they are the mom, and they're a support to a person who's got like no time for them. And to be very honest with you ladies, if I talk about my journey and I touch on it a little bit, I didn't have an abusive husband. I didn't have a husband who told me don't go to work. I didn't have a husband who said, I am now jealous because you have attained XYZ. But then there were problems, you know, that started to manifest within the relationship. And what I want to, why I touch on this is because I listen to so many women speaking, powerful women. And if the story of every one of the powerful women is to say that I am successful, and my marriage is wonderful, and I have never had a problem, then that's when people will start to suffer from imposter syndrome, because they will think, what is wrong with me? Well, why am I going through XYZ? So I share my story, not so that, you know, we can have like, or we can dip into the intimate details of my life, or that I would want to demonize the father of my child, because by the way, I think he's an excellent father. And I think, you know, for the husband that he was to me those 17 years, he really supported me. But then there were things that happened where I had to take stock. And I always say to people that, you know, your life is not a group project. So you have to sit and say to yourself, when all things are said and done, you know, when I'm 80, or when my children are grown up, or, you know, even when I'm talking to other people like this, how honest do I want to be? Or how much do I want to act for them? And then go to bed at night and be unhappy, or live with a person that I can see is unhappy. it's not a group project. It's a very, very personal decision. Also look at who you have around you, because the people that you have around you, the people that you allow to speak into your life, are going to really, really make a difference. Because I remember when I was grappling with this, because so many people had told me, you know what, you are a role model. What will the young girls do who look up to you, and so on. And so I now was already in the space of maybe I just should, even though I could see that it's just not working out. So I remember that we hadn't seen each other for years, Grace and I. And then we bumped into each other somewhere. And I don't know if you remember this, Grace. And then you said to me, Nancy, what's going on? And then I said, oh, da, 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 da. And because I trust her and I know she's got good intentions for me, I unloaded like immediately. And she's one of the few people, maybe one of the 3 or 4 people that I could have unloaded to. And then she said to me, we are going to Queen of Hearts on Friday. We are going to buy wine and we're going to buy sushi. And we are going to talk about life. And then we went, and then, you know, she didn't tell me that this is what you must do. She asked me a series of questions. And because she asked me questions and I answered them impartially, she forced me to do in my personal life what I would have done in the boardroom. She said to me, take stock. If this is what you want to do, do it and be free to do it. If that's what you want to do, do it and be free to do it. But, you know, count the consequences and so on. And then thereafter, it became easy. And then I said to her, I remember I said to her when I finally made the decision, because I made the decision. I wasn't beaten. I wasn't, you know, there were things that happened, but I wasn't beaten. Nobody did like anything abusive to me, but it was time to make a change. And then when I said to her, okay, Grace, I've made the decision, but I'm just so worried because I'm in a high profile office and da, 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 da. And what's going to happen, because I don't want this in the papers. And she said, will you be the first woman or will you be the last woman that might be in the papers? Will you be? You won't.
Yes.
And even if you are, if they write about you tomorrow, phone me again, we'll have another bottle of wine. And the next day there will be a new article. And, you know, I'll forever be grateful to her for this conversation, because it made me like open my eyes. And she also spoke to me about her journey. I mean, she's like a sister to me. She spoke to me about her journey and said, I think this, and, you know, this is the place I am. And she talked to me about, like, you know, the happiness and the joys, like, in her marriage and the decisions that she had to make and so on. And it made me feel a whole lot brave. And I remember that day so vividly, because we sat and she came with her grandchild and she told her, go away and play. And then we sat there, we ate sushi and we drank wine. And she empowered me. And she told me to, you know, to kind of fully do what you really want to do, and have no regrets. And I'm so grateful for that, because I think there's so many people who got regrets. So I always share, because I think if she could share with me, if another woman could share with me like that and help me to get into a place of power, why would I want to get into a place and lie? Because I think a lot of women speak and they hide what they think will be viewed in an adverse manner. But how can you empower your sisters? How can we empower the next generation when we are living a lie, or when we face a challenge, we hide it? And all I'm here to do is tell you that, you know, one day I was a CEO of this, and then I won this award, and then all of that is part of my journey, and it doesn't lessen you if you go through challenges. In fact, it strengthens you. If you can go through a challenge, you can overcome it, and you can still be true to yourself and be, like I'll say, still be a boss, still be a wonderful mom, still be, you know, a person who's in control of their own life. So, you know, the topic, which is, can women have it all? My question would be, you get to define what is the all that you want. It's not the world that tells you that having it all means that you are called Mrs. So-and-so, you have, you know, 3 kids by the time you're 35. You have to define what is it that I am after, and what is it that's going to give me satisfaction and happiness. And then your answer will obviously be yes, you can have it all if you're really living your own truth.
Nancy, thank you so much for that transparency and for the bravery, not just in your own life, but, you know, sharing that with us. And, you know, that it's absolutely powerful. Now, I'd love to hear from Chinasai. Chinasai has a very amazing story surrounding partnership and an ecosystem. So Chinasai, if you could just, you know, just impart, you know, just some of what has worked for you with, you know, trying to balance your business and family.
I was hoping to be quiet on this conversation because I'm taking a lot of things in, and yeah, it's a lot of beautiful stuff. Accountability issues, issues of being kind to each other. I loved the story between Miss Nancy and Dr. Grace. You know, it's just beautiful to know that women can be honest with each other, not judge each other. In my sense, I have always said, I also got married. I got married at 25, and I'm married to an amazing husband. But beyond my husband, we have an ecosystem, right? It takes a village, I say. It has been the investment in the relationships, in the relationships to the in-laws, to his siblings, that for some reason have allowed me to do what I need to do. So the ecosystem for me, I think, speaking from my personal experience, and I would really love to hear from our panel and everyone else on the call, is the ecosystem matters so much. And we need, as equally as we invest in other tools to help our careers, we need to invest in that ecosystem so that it allows us sometimes to drop the ball and someone else is there to pick it up while we run ahead. And for me, for instance, I am an entrepreneur and I'm chasing a dream. And sometimes I have to leave my children to go to God knows where. And I can go and leave them with Mama Mangoma and know that it will be okay. And I can literally forget that I have children because I've left the child with the grandparents. So I want to bring in this point of ecosystems. And sometimes I think, in my instance, with some of my experiences, with some of my colleagues, is we forget that the village matters as much as the work we want to do. So we focus so much on the work and forget to invest in the familyhood, the ecosystem, the friends, the brothers, the sisters. I want us to talk a little bit about that. How do we get to understand the importance of an ecosystem, and how do we build these ecosystems so that they allow us to go off balance and do what we need to do?
Also remembering that sometimes those ecosystems don't necessarily always have positives, Cheney, right? So like, I guess if you think about, I think Nancy started touching on it when she said, look at who's around you. And I consider all of those people part of your ecosystem. I think Sheryl Sandberg also includes like allies kind of in there, your partners, your co-workers, all these other people. So maybe, you know, you can give us some comments on how you sort of traverse those, developing that ecosystem, who you listen to, who you don't, who you ignore, whose words are important.
And actually, if I could just tag one dynamic to that, I think, you know, Nancy, listening to you speak, there is the element of being a single mom, trying to make your way up the corporate ladder. That ecosystem becomes that more, important. It becomes actually quite potent in allowing you to excel in your spaces. So that's something that I'm sure the single moms out there would love to hear your feedback on as well.
Okay, so I'm blessed because I come from a huge family. So I have 8 siblings. I have 5 sisters, and I have got 3 brothers. And my sisters and I have always been very close. So I find that my son is 17 now. So look, he more or less like wants me out of his life and, you know, to do his own thing. He's at that stage. But when he was little, and I would be I was still married at the time anyway. But what you find is that as a woman, no matter how big or how powerful you are still the person setting the pace in your home. So I would find that I could be in Singapore and my son would be in Harare with my husband at the time. And I would know this is what my son has in his lunchbox. It's a Wednesday and I have said that you are going to carry XYZ. You can't run away from that. And I think a lot of times we struggle because we try to run away from what is. I'm the person who would know. So if I was going away for 2 weeks, I would know that, you know, we have got fish, we have got oxtail, we have got whatever. And I have told my helper that this is what we're going to do. So I would know like what's going on. But I also had like the benefit of having 5 sisters. So if I wasn't there and my child needed a mother to be at a sports day or to pick him up or whatnot, because it can't always be. Sometimes you just need the comfort of having a person who you really, really trust. Not you trust your driver or whoever else you employ, but you just want, you know, that relational, you know, person who can discipline your child, who can give them a hug, who can whatever. I would always know that one of my sisters could. So if I felt that what he needs right now is a person who's almost me, I would always call on one of those people. And then of course there's, you know, friends that you develop, because I've got friends who, I had a friend who 3 weeks ago had to attend a funeral. and she could phone me and boss me and say, you know what, Nancy, can you go and pick up my kids and take them to cricket? And I said, okay, I can. And that's just sort of, I think, the kind of person you need to build, a person that you really trust, a person who is running the same journey as you. So the reason why Grace and I could have that conversation, for example, about what was happening in my life is because we were running the same journey. And she could really understand like where I was coming from. So I find that you've got to invest in, you know, really who are the people that you're calling friends, even in terms of family, who are the people that you've got there. And I want to touch a little bit on helpers, for example, because I know that it's such a controversial thing. And in Zimbabwe, I know that there's guys who say that I don't want this to be done by the helper. And there's women who feel that they're less than, you know, when that's done for them. I've never had that conflict, because I find that if you want to be a career woman, and more so now, because, you know, like I'm by myself, if you want to be a career woman and you want to build a career, you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to build whatever you want to build, the person who's in your home, you've got to over invest in them. So I find that I want to know, like, who are you, where do you come from, who are your kids, whatnot. And whatever the government is saying, pay this person X, Y, Z, I don't even look at it. I look at what do I want to do, because what do I want from that person? If I'm coming home like at 9 or 10 because I've had a business dinner, if I've got to travel for like a week or 2 weeks, and this person is in my home, she's going to cook for my child, she's going to clean the home. If guests come, she's going to probably be the first person. I will over invest in that person, be it the helper in my home, be it the driver. And just, you know, in terms of, be it, you know, even friends or like the sisters that I talk about, also look at what are their interests, what are they worried about. Try to over invest in them, because it does take a village. But you can't expect a village to be built up around you if you're not interested in other people's villages. So really, that's what I would say about that. But yeah, it takes a village, and you want to make sure that you invest in that.
Oh, thank you, Nancy. I want to shift the conversation a little bit. Dr. Grace, if you can help us with this. So I have met women whose husbands are, you know, their business partner, their workout partner, their prayer warrior, their best friend, their, you know, you name it, right? This man is the everything, the father, the children, the, you know, 100, the list of 100. And then I've met women who say, okay, he's my best friend, he's my, you know, but I have my own interests. I have, you know, I like tennis, whereas he likes whatever other sport. And what's the balance? You know, what's the balance? Dr. Grace, if you could just give a thought surrounding, you know, surrounding that topic.
Okay, Mildred. Well, certainly I don't want my husband around me 24/7. I think that I would absolutely go mad. You know, yes, I've been with him for over 30 years, but I would not. But look, I think they're very lucky ladies, if they are able to do that. Certainly, doing things together brings you closer. You know, and if you can, the more things I think you can do with your partner, the better for you. That's the ideal. But like I said, not many marriages are ideal. I personally like to have my own space. I have my girlfriends, and I value my time with my girlfriends, because you do need other people who anchor you, you know, who will tell you, who gives you honest feedback, you know, about yourself, about what you're doing, you know, and so on. And you can't always get that, you know, say from your husband. You know, your friends will give you that honest feedback. It could be the people you go to church with. You know, you want to develop relationships in the church, you know, and they will help you, you know, to anchor you also in a certain manner. But again, I think the dynamics of people's relationships are very different. And you can never say, because this is working for this person, it will work for you. I think you need to examine your own relationship, you know, your relationship with your partner, and decide what is going to work for you. I know I'll be surprised, I think, if there are also men who give up their other relationships just to be 24/7 with you. You know, that's very difficult. And so I don't see why we should, you know, because can you imagine if something goes wrong with that marriage? Where are you going to start? Because, you know, you have abandoned all these other relationships. So I think for me, that's also part of the balance. You know, if one can do that, you know, you need to give time to your friends, give time to your siblings. Yeah, like what Nancy said, you know, give time, you know, for all these other relationships, and still manage to give time to your husband. So for me, what has also worked is that, you know, we work out, my husband and I, we like to work out early in the morning. And So it has given us time, for us to discuss, so what are you going to do today? Normally 5:30, we are up, we are having our workouts, we go out for a walk, or we are in our home gym or whatever, and we get to discuss. So, and it's important, as you set out, in your day, you've given your husband that time, and you are planning together. You need that time, certainly, but you also need time for your other relationships. I've, COVID is something else, but, I have a group of girlfriends, 12 girlfriends. We vacation every year. We've got an annual holiday. We go out. The first time that happened, my husband was like, hey, and you can imagine, because our vacation was to Jamaica. And so you can imagine a group of 13 girls off to Jamaica, for a week. So he could even take me to the airport. He says, what do you think my friends are going to say? I've just dropped my wife at the airport. She's going to Jamaica with her friends. What do you think my friends are going to say? But you know what? I come back from there. I'm refreshed. I'm good for him. I've got all the energy. So we do that every year. And I would not give that up for anything. Every year we take 1 week, we've vacationed in Jamaica, we've done Cuba, we've done, we plan. We have a pleasure manager amongst us, and she picks up the holiday destinations and says, okay, ladies, and we start saving up for it. There are certain things that you just want to talk with your girlfriends, which are not boys' talk, and we carve out that time, we've done that just so that we can share our experiences, we de-stress, we do all the girlish things, and when we do all those girlish things, we don't want men around us.
So, quick question from me to you ladies, and Mildred, if you don't mind me just derailing a little bit, just based on what Dr. Grace has just said, this idea of community, the idea of working together, the sisterhood, if you like, in the village is quite a potent image in my mind. And actually part of this fireside network is about identifying women who you feel are like-minded, that you want to work with. One thing I did want to ask though about marriage to both of you is, there's something about being in corporate spaces, and this transcends cultures, geographies, etc., where a failed marriage or a troubled marriage, or even being single and unmarried, comes with negative perceptions from colleagues, from bosses, where there's an assumption that either, you failing at marriage suggests that you might fail in your leadership role, or you being single makes you the party girl who can't be taken seriously by clients, for argument's sake. Have you faced those experiences at all? Maybe not. Or how have you helped women navigate that kind of mindset? Because it can be quite challenging for most women.
So what I can say is that I faced it. Interestingly, I have faced it more in the church, which is supposed to be a loving and kind space, than I faced in the corporate world. I found that in the corporate world, because so many women are grappling with having it all, with being a wife, being a mom, and facing the challenges that go with it. They sort of understood, but not really from bosses. What I have found though, which has been interesting, but I've been able to navigate, is that a lot of women who are divorced or separated or even single in the corporate world may pretend that they're married or that they're attached, because I think men in the corporate world may feel that it's open season the moment that they know that you're a single woman. And what I find is that look, you are the boss of your life. So if a person decides to be too friendly or to think that it's open season, it's up to you to put him in his place, so that he understands that if you're not interested, you're not interested, and that's it. And beyond that, it becomes it can become harassment. I've not had that experience, but yes, I have had the experience where you will find some women like taking a step back, because all of a sudden they are feeling that you might be into their territory, because I think there's such an overarching belief that if you are not attached, you are not really maybe whole. Let me put it that way. So you find that a lot of women will worry that you're going to start hunting in their territory. So, but I feel that as a person, you've got to be happy if people decide to leave you. For example, if a friend of mine, a person that I considered a friend, had decided that they want to walk away from me simply because I'd gone through this in my journey, that was also going to be okay. If I found that in the workplace, I think I would have been disappointed. But I've just found that, you know, men have been men. And I would be naive if I didn't think that men were going to be men. And then you've got to put them in their place. This is an everyday part of life. And I think it can happen whether you're married or you're single. You've got to just put people in their place if they're going where you don't want them to go.
And just in my own mentoring capacity, very often you've got young girls who are fearful to actually stand up and defend themselves against lecherous, you know, men. So there is something to be said about learning this skill quite early on. It doesn't come naturally to everybody, but such a powerful thing to be able to just say no, back off, and be willing to escalate it if it becomes an issue that you can't control.
Let me just say, sorry, Mucha, let me just jump in maybe before Grace comes in, to say that this is where the power of mentoring and coaching and even sponsoring each other comes in. A lot of young girls or a lot of women are not as privileged as I am. I said I had no business not doing well in my life because I think I've been given privilege, you know, left, right, and center, and I was always taught to speak up. A lot of people have not been. So it's very important when we see people coming into the workspace or into any space that where we are as women leaders, that you let them know that they've got someone that they can come to and that they can talk to. And then, you know, you can help them. You can say to them, this is what you can do. The company will support you if this happens. I will support you. Speak out, do X, Y, Z, as opposed to a person just thinking they have to fight it alone. So that's where I think the power of women leaders really comes in, where you can just let them know that there is a safe space to go to ask questions, to unload, and that you will support them and you will coach them. Ultimately, they have to do the you know, whatever has to be done themselves, but to know that they've got a support system.
Oh man, ladies, this has been so filling. We've got about 10 minutes left on the board, but this fireside chat has been absolutely amazing. And I would like to end this off by just hearing from each one of you. If you were to talk to your younger self, what would you tell her in this matter of being a family woman and being, you know, a working woman? What would you tell her?
The message that I would like to give is that if marriage is not an enabler of happiness for you, then you don't need it in your life. Okay, so we need to look at marriage as enabling happiness. And when it stops enabling happiness, then it's not good for you. So I think when you make that decision, you're a career person, you're doing very well, you have done all the things that I've said, you know, you're confident, you're an expert at what you're doing. And so we need to then see marriage as a next step. You know, it's going to make me fuller, it's going to make me happier. And I think when we go into it that way, we'll probably find that we'll be better able to navigate all the challenges that come with marriage. Like I said, marriage is a very difficult institution. It's not easy. And I think that's why a lot of people say, you know, because no matter how much you tell somebody, you know, don't rush into this and so on. You know, as young people, young girls, they still rush into it. But it's a difficult institution and you need to be ready for it. You need to go into it well equipped, you know, which also means, you know, and for me, and I want to say this to my sister Nancy, is that you're also better able to walk away when you are enabled, when you are economically empowered. You know, the reason why a lot of girls stay in unhappy marriage is that they are not economically empowered. So we allow ourselves to be slaves, you know, in marriage. But a lot of the young girls I'm seeing these days, you know, in fact, they are not hesitating to walk away because they are enabled. And yet it shouldn't be like that. You know, I think we should try as much as possible to have a balanced life, and which means having a good career, have your marriage, your children, you know, family. I think family is biblical. So it's something that we should be aiming for, but it must be an enabler of happiness.
Oh, powerful. Dr. Mona, what would you tell your younger self?
I consider myself, I'm here speaking for the other hoods, and I really resonate with what Nancy is saying, that you really need to be happy in what you're doing. So what I would tell my younger self, I think looking for mentorship, being comfortable in my own skin, which I think I have sort of tried to evolve, continue to develop, find ways to use my support systems use my support systems to develop whatever advances I'm looking for in my career, but also like continue having conversations like these where I look for people that are modeling what I want to be in the future and sort of pick at their character, at their good traits and choose what I want. I think for my career path so far, with the two guests that we have, I don't see someone that's modeling 100% what I envision, but I can pick and choose the different things that they have that I think are important, and then mold whatever career path that I think until I find that person to model.
Mucha, let's hear from you.
Yeah, sure. So mine is really about embracing who one is. So I'm that one who was the youngest one to sit around a management team. I was that only Black female. I was the only Black person on the floor. And with that came something of an arrogance almost. What I'd tell my younger self is to learn when to moderate that, and to learn the politics that goes with ascending the corporate ladder, because you can't escape it. So I think the mistake that we make very often is, getting in there, you're pushing the doors open, you're demanding to be seen, to be heard, which is all beautiful stuff. But with that must come an intelligence of understanding the environment you're in, understanding the impacts that you have, and then just really learning how to moderate it and to fine tune it so that it works in your favor. It's a learning process still, but that is the biggest lesson I'll teach my younger self.
Fantastic. Chinasai?
If I had to talk to my younger self, I think it would be, you have everything you need to succeed. To Nancy's point, you're really just going to have to be courageous. Allow yourself to be vulnerable, allow yourself to be fearful. Allow yourself to be scared, because you already created in a way that you can do it all. You can be married, you can have children, you can pursue a career. You just have to allow yourself to be bold, allow yourself to be vulnerable, and just go at it fearlessly and relentlessly. But we can do it.
And Nancy?
I think if I had to talk to my younger self, I've actually been thinking as you guys have been talking, because that was an unexpected question. I think I would tell myself it's okay to fail, because I said that a lot of things were easy for me, and so because in the corporate world you will have things that you'll fail at. In marriage, like I talked about, you will have things that you fail at. It's okay to fail, and once you tell yourself it's okay to fail, then you know that you can still get up the next day. The world will not stop if you have a failure. So it's okay to fail at something and then get up and move on again. And I would also tell myself, run harder, run faster, a lot earlier. In as much as we can sit here and, we can talk about accolades, the only person who knows really what a person can really do is that person. And I think I would have allowed myself to run a lot harder, a lot faster earlier on. And then the last thing I would have told my younger self is enjoy yourself. I think I took myself way too seriously in my 20s, and I'm angry because I'm not in my 20s anymore, and I should have done certain things in my 20s, but it's okay, because I am where I am now, and I'm having a lot more fun. So also enjoy yourself, because it's you get to go around once, and then after that you're gone. So enjoy the ride while you're still on this ride.
Oh man, this has been so amazing. For me, I think it's don't be held hostage by who you think you should be. Who you are will today versus who you'll be next year could be a very different person, and it will be shaped by your experiences, by the people that impact you, like the powerful women that we've had at the table today, and so constantly evaluate the path that you're taking to determine if it's the path that you want to still be on, or if there's a journey that a different journey or path or road that you should be taking. This has been so amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Grace. Thank you so much, Nancy. You have been amazing. You've been amazing.
Thank you for having us.